I've just spotted another interesting tree, which is Hinoki Cypress. Hinoki is a very tricky tree to grow. For one thing, the ones which are normally produced in Europe are grafted onto ordinary Cypress, the ordinary Cypress or Leylandii stock. Look at the ugly root there. But sometimes people carve it and make a feature of that. So I've been struggling to make a bonsai from this for ages and ages and ages. But I think it will eventually make an interesting bonsai. What the hell, let's take it into the greenhouse and work on this one. Before I work on the Hinoki Cypress that we brought out from our growing field or the growing area, I want to talk about Hinokis in general. We sell quite a lot of Hinokis, but certain clones don't seem to do well. This is a customer's tree. Customer's trees in this nursery are all tagged with a red tag. And he's been struggling with this tree through no fault of his own. And it keeps dying. It sends out new growth, but you get this dieback as well. So I haven't lost hope entirely for this tree because it's still struggling to live. But I'll just point out, for those of you who grow Hinoki, that Hinoki is a very tricky subject. And certain varieties of Hinoki tend to get this disease. I think it must be a viral disease. It's certainly not due to insect damage, but you suddenly get lots of these branches dying. So be warned, Hinoki Cypress is difficult to grow. All right, having said that, let's go and work on the other tree. Now this one is on its own roots. That is not a grafted tree. That's not grafted. And that could possibly be why it is having this growth. To work on that big tree, let me show you the Hinokis that we sell on the nursery. So these are what we call our semi-trained trees, which customers buy and they make bonsai out of it. And these are the Hinokis that are propagated by not grafting, they're just cuttings. So they're lovely little trees, but very slow growing. And we've got even bigger ones like this. So this is what we call Cypress obtusa nana gracilis. So very popular tree, but difficult to make into bonsai. I'll just show you that what we do on these smaller ones. So these are some of the small cuttings that we wired up, so you get a bonsai like this. And slightly bigger one, this was done about 4 or 5 years ago, and you can get a bonsai like this. So that is Hinoki, and they're all on their own roots, they're not grafted at all. So that's how we make the Hinoki Cypress from small trees. Now let's work on this big one and see what we can make of it. This is one very old tree. If you can just see the root base and the root stock. Very often you come across these trees in people's gardens and they have this very ugly bulbous graft. This is the Leylandii understock, and that's where the tree is grafted on. It looks ridiculous, but if you are very clever, you can carve that out and make it look like part of the thick trunk. Now this is an interesting tree that I've been attempting to bonsai for a long time. You can see some attempts with wire marks are here, but the wire marks have grown out. So when people say wire marks are bad, look at it. They were wired, but it's grown out, so no big deal. But the trunk has been very slow in thickening. The base understock has thickened, but the actual stem of the tree has been very slow in thickening up. So what do we do with this tree? As with all these trees, let's look at the different options that there are. So you can make it like that, come down sweeping, I don't know. I'm just thinking aloud. It's very bare here, so it's got that literati type character to the tree. I could even dispose of this side Let me get a white bag and show you what effect I can get. So let's apply the Peter Chan bag trick. So if I get rid of that, I can get a tree with just that, like a literati type tree, using that bit. But it seems a shame to waste all that. You know, I've taken all the trouble to grow this. Now why should I want to waste that bit? Seems kind of a shame. And of course we don't always have to have it growing at that particular angle. Let me find a pot to prop it up. What if I prop it up a little more? See, that line is very nice. Always turn the tree around and get different views. And also, what if we did this? Would that help? I don't think so somehow. I think the best option is still like so. Seems a shame to waste all this bit if I just made a literati with that. This is where you got to think before you cut. I know that I take quick decisions, but even this one has got me a bit stumped. I think it's too wide, the tree is too wide. So let's get rid of this one. Now that has improved it almost immediately by doing that. And this, if we make it compact, we can get quite a tight head to it. I don't like to make the trees too drastic. If it's too drastic, you limit the market. Because I'm a commercial nursery, I have to sell the trees. And if all the trees look very stark, it may be my taste, but it may not be what the customer wants. So I always have to bear in mind what the customer wants. Now, do I need that bit? What can I do with that bit? Perhaps I could do that. So let's just do a bit of wiring. It's going to take a lot of time. Just by taking off that long bit from this side, it's made a difference. So I'm going to reduce it much more. I think what is also confusing is this bit here. That's confusing. Let's take that off. Now this is a thick branch, but I'm trying to camouflage that branch. So I'll bring the whole tree like that, tight like that. Make it really tight. Okay, let's do some funny things. Let's do some gins with that. These will all make beautiful cuttings. I'm going to wire this. Just a little bit of wiring. And this all in real time. I haven't cheated or taken shortcuts. You don't often see Hinoki Cypress as bonsai. Certainly in Japan, I have hardly ever seen Hinoki Cypress as bonsai. And if you do see it, they're very rare and very expensive to buy. I've seen one or two very nice ones grown by British growers, amateurs. There's one in particular that I saw at an exhibition and I really admired it very much. I can't remember the grower who grew it, but it was certainly a very fine example. So there are some people who manage to make some beautiful Hinoki using just ordinary nursery or garden trees. And in fact, if I remember right, that Hinoki also had an ugly bulbous base like this one, but he somehow managed to camouflage it. So all bits of wire. Now let me just see what I can do with this bit here. So let's wire this up, and I think I've changed the wire, but get back to the original wire I was using, which is this. I'm using, by the way, this is 3.5 mil wire. I've always said that there are about 3 or 4 wires that are very, very commonly used. 2 millimeter, 2.5 mil, 3 and 3.5. For most people, if you have that stock of wire, you should be able to tackle most projects. And for those of you who are just starting in bonsai, don't be stingy with wire. Always spend money on wire, because without wire you cannot make bonsai. I've often told you about our early days of bonsai in the UK, where we used to just use the insides of electric cable or use the coat hanger wire to do the bonsai, because back in even in the early 80s, bonsai wire was very difficult to get. None of the importers imported wire because they just imported a few bonsai trees. Accessories were seldom sold, so wire was a luxury, absolute luxury. Wire is so useful that with wire you can create magic. So if you see magic being created, it is nothing to do with one skill, it is just the skill in bending the wires. See, I'm now bending this backward. I'm just going to tighten everything to make it more compact, because this is a bit of a leggy tree. I'm just going to make it more compact. So I've now brought all this back. So it's tightened everything now. I'll do another bit to do it. going to take this all the way to the top. Now this is still 3.5 millimeter wire I'm using. I'm just going to use the branch splitter in case I need to bend this a little more. Branch splitter is a very useful tool for those of you who are getting more sophisticated or learning more and more adventurous. Then the branch splitter is certainly a must-have tool. I'm going to use a double coil. Sometimes I find if you use a double of a slightly thinner gauge rather than use just one very thick gauge, it can be more effective. I ran a bit shorter wire. I'm usually very good at gauging how much wire to use. I don't like wrapping long coils of wire flapping around, so I always cut to the amount I need. But I went slightly wrong there. I'm going to bend the top there. And this is, I'm going to use a double again from there to there. There are certain basic principles that you can be taught when doing wiring, but at the end of the day, your skill with wiring comes with practice. As I've always said, because I have some experience in swimming, and these neuromuscular activities come with constant practice. I know there's a bit of artistic quality involved, but much of it is really practice. The more you do, the better you get at it. I'm just going to thin some of these shoots to give me some ideas to what the tree will look like. Otherwise I may be wiring unnecessarily. like the juniper, what you must never do is just shear across the foliage. Supposing that's a branch, don't just shear across like that. You got to go into the wood and cut it from the wood there when you prune. So with hinokis and juniper, that's the way to prune it. Still got to deal with the top. So I'm tightening it to give it a crown there. Can you see I've made a crown now? Just by doing that. I've bent it double, like a hairpin. Now let's turn it right round. It's one of those strange trees that for some reason it looks right from either side. I just looked at it now. It's funny how when you work on trees, what you may have thought was the preferred front doesn't turn out to be the preferred front. So again, as I say, always keeping an open mind. Let's see what happens here. Hinoki cypress, like the junipers, they take to wiring very well, and the branches set quite easily. It's usually deciduous trees that take longer to set, I find. So I think I've done enough. I'm not going to repot this till the spring. I think I've been misleading some people because sometimes I work in the summer and then keep it in this humid greenhouse. But because this is quite a precious tree, I'm going to be restrained and wait till the spring, February. February is the earliest I repot. So I will probably do it then. I'm just adding a few little bits of gin. I'm not a great lover of gins, but just to show you what can be done. Just breaking the branch. I'm going to leave that there for a while because it may add some character and depth to the tree. This is still my preferred front because it's leaning slightly towards me. So I've made this into a fairly presentable bonsai from something which was very, very difficult. And this will probably go in a round drum pot, potted to about this level. And as I said, we've made something out of virtually nothing, and with the angle of the tree set like this, you don't see the very bad graft very much. So we can try and hide that graft. So there you go.